Is a paid program. The opinions contained within do not necessarily reflect those of the staff, management, or sponsors of News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.
Inside the Law is presented to educate listeners in Monmouth and Ocean counties about legal issues. The opinions expressed by the host, guests, and phone callers are strictly their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Town Square Media and are not intended to be a substitute for personal legal advice from your own attorney.
Your questions and comments are welcome at 732-505-1160. Inside the Law, talk radio for the Jersey Shore.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Inside the Law, brought to you by the law offices of Novy and Associates, your elder law boutique law firm in Ocean and Monmouth County. And for those of you listening on the radio, this is 1160 WOBM AM in Ocean County, 1310 AM in Monmouth County, and all over the world on WOBMAM.com. Every week we like to take you, the listener, inside the law to learn about a topic of interest. We also give you an opportunity to call in if you have questions about a legal issue or about the subject matter of today's show. And to call us, our phone lines are open. The number here at the studio is 732-505-1160. And I'm proud to and pleased to welcome a friend, a colleague, and a tremendous resource and dynamo here in Ocean County who's a great public servant. She's been doing her job for a number of years, and I know she's been on the show as well in the past. Please welcome Sergeant Cindy Boyd from the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office, who has a very vast background in law enforcement. She's a great resource to us in law enforcement, to us attorneys, to financial advisors, and to you, the listener, because she and her team of people get involved in trying to help protect us financially, physically, here in Ocean and Monmouth County and through her efforts. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning.
How long have you been involved in law enforcement?
Going back to when I graduated Maryland, all in all with private and public service, about 35 years. But here in this office, it's my second time, and I've been here 22 years.
And can you give us an idea of how you got involved with the Senior Scam Task Force?
Well, this is going back many years, starting in 1999. We had an issue with a senior. We got an anonymous phone call, and not knowing whether we could track down the source of it or the actual victim, glad to say that I was able to track down the victim after about 2 weeks in a nursing home. And ultimately, she had become a victim of financial exploitation. And that case was rather long and arduous, but came to a very good ending. Unfortunately, she did pass, but we were able to recoup money and to arrest several people involved. And that to me was the start of recognizing that these crimes of exploitation against our seniors are not all civil. When you take a harder look at them, you look at the facts, and every case we look at individually based on its own merit. We have to see if there's something criminally we can go after, and this particular case just screamed it to not just me but to everyone in the office, and that to me was the start of the actual task force. And then we got involved moving forward, going into 2000, 2001, getting involved with the scams dealing with the international lotteries.
I know that we hear these stories all the time by way of example. And we sometimes get these calls at home. I get them in the office. Mr. Novy, I'm calling from the state police. I'm calling from the Fraternal Brotherhood of Police or whomever. We're looking to raise money to buy vests to keep our police safe. Or we're looking to buy police cars or whatever they're looking to buy. What should somebody do if they get a call like that?
I just got one last night. And, you always want to look to help your local police department. And what I suggest to many people who I get these calls all the time based on what they're receiving, whether it's through an email, but mainly phone solicitation. You never give out money to someone that you're being solicited by, whether it's email or phone. But what I suggest is that if you want to help your local police department, they have fundraisers. Contact the local police department, whether it's a PBA rep, or if they're having a current fundraiser like in Tom's River here, they do Vesta Cop, and they do a fundraiser at Pizza Hut. Go with what you know. Probably 10 years ago, there was a huge scam countrywide dealing with the National Police Association out of Washington, and that ended up being a multi-million-dollar scam where they would send you a sticker, but, the local police, in every town or state would laugh because, here you're paying this fee to someone who's not there protecting you directly. And that ended up being a long-term investigation.
And is it fair to say that a local police department and state police department or even county is not going to call somebody like that over the phone and solicit money?
Well, normally no.
Okay.
But there are some police departments and sheriff's officers or police departments that come under the sheriff, and not in this county, but I know in other counties because I've spoken to reps from those departments, that they do fundraisers and they do solicit by phone, but it's a company that they hire.
Okay.
And to each his own, but I suggest that if you really want to reach your people, you got to have contact with them.
And if you're not sure, call your local police department or prosecutor's office to see if it's a legitimate, bona fide organization that's asking for your support.
Well, I always say go right to the source. Say if it's a local police department and they're fundraising. Another big one is with state police. Call them directly, and they will tell you if they are currently doing a fundraiser. But majority of them don't do it that way anymore.
Now, what are some of the current scams that are being perpetuated here in Ocean and, for that matter, Monmouth County?
There's several. And, it's funny. I did a look back from 10 years ago. I had some notes on scams going back 2005. And one of them is what's going on now, dealing with grants. I just got a call last week saying, they want to give me $7,000. I don't have
total stranger.
Absolutely. And they're saying they're with the federal government and we have this grant money for you. And they almost fell for it, but they said, something just didn't sound right. And so they got a phone, they contacted somebody at the social services, and they said, well, call Cindy Boyd, and she'll decipher what is actually going on here. And sure enough, it was the grant scam going around again. A lot of times they'll send you a check to pay for the insurance on the money, and you never see the $7,000. And here you've gotten a check that's actually bad. You deposit it. They want you to wire the money to someone somewhere, and it's usually a good chunk of that check. Say it's $2,000. They want you to wire back $1,800. So that in itself, it's not. Red flags should go up all along. And if you look at the check, a lot of times it has nothing to do with what they're saying. It comes from an insurance company or it comes from a bank.
But it's not directly related to the alleged business or foundation or whatever they purport to be.
No.
What about my concern would be if, let's say, a person got that check and deposited it or cashed it, they're going to endorse the back of the check. They're going to write down their checking account number. And when that company that issued the check gets it back as a canceled check, they're going to have access to that person's bank account information also.
A good deal of the time, these checks are either counterfeit checks in themselves or they're stolen from a business.
I see.
Majority of them are just plain counterfeit.
I see. So
the criminals who are issuing these through a majority of the sweepstakes and lotteries that we see, and one as recent that I took a look at this morning, they just know you're going to get that money in the bank. You want your prize money. And one of this real big red flags is that don't tell anybody that you won. Go to the bank and then call us right away. And
what's the idea behind that?
Well, the whole idea is that they want you to get that money in there and then withdraw it immediately, because if that money can become available right away most times. But we suggest you never take money out on a check that you don't know where it comes from until it actually clears through the main party.
Because if it's a bad check, as obviously it's 99% of the time going to be, the bank may be honoring that check and paying you the cash that you were told to take out.
Yes.
But if the check proves to be bad, your bank is going to charge you back for the money that you took out.
Well, going back about 15 years, I had a good setup with all the banks when this came to light. And we had so many victims back then before we got involved. And they were actually refunding the money. But then as it got to be to the point where people weren't listening, they were still doing it, they stopped it. And And then we continued with the education. That slowed down, eventually stopped. And now the calls I'm getting, because, and it has to go back to everybody that's involved, not just my office, but people like yourself,
right?
All the social agencies, that anybody that has to do with seniors, financial institutions, they all have come together, and that's how we formed the task force. And it still exists today. But again, seniors are so well educated now that they call one of us first before they do anything.
I know that you and other members of the prosecutor's office regularly go out and speak to financial advisors. You speak to attorneys such as us at Novy & Associates. You've spoken at the bar associations. You've spoken to doctors and hospitals because there's all kinds of scams, financial scams, elder abuse scams, all kinds of things being perpetuated. So the more our adult population are aware of these scams, these attempted crimes, and so forth, the more we can protect ourselves and our loved ones from falling victim to them.
Yeah, well, and it's going back to a lot of times these scams come in through the telephone. Now they're reverting back to mail. And again, I always see a trend where after so many years it comes back around. And we've just, as of today, came back around to the Nigerian scams. I dealt with them for years, going back to the late 90s and the early 2000s. And now I was shocked to see this, but I received a letter from a victim, and, well, not a victim, I should say. They were going to be a prospective victim, but they knew not to get involved, and sent me a copy of the check. And the funny thing is that they are trying to get you to do the same thing again. Take this check, and by the way, the check that I'm looking at is from a insurance company, for a dental insurance company.
Even though the solicitation
was for
sweepstakes?
Yes, it was for, it's called Brent Trust Financial Company, and they're actually alleging to be the managing office for this sweepstakes. And the telltale sign here that it's definitely a scam is that it's the European African USA Consumer Sweepstakes. So for those of you who don't know it, that playing international lotteries or sweepstakes are illegal in the United States. It's against the law. Totally against the law. And unfortunately, I've had to, bring that up with some of the victims that refuse to stop playing. But with this particular scam, they supplied the check, and I took the opportunity this morning to call a number that was provided, and it's an 877 number, which you can get off of the internet and open up an account using this particular number. But it rang overseas. Dealing with this so much, I know exactly, and I've been in Europe numerous times. The phone ring, and ultimately they a Nigerian-sounding male answered the phone, and we had a long conversation. He believed me to be the prospective victim, and by the time I was done with him, I was able to ascertain certain information as to, how they were running the scam. And, of course, when I told him I was a police officer and that I know who he is and where he's at, he hung up right away. But, again, and that's to let them know that they're aware of this, and we'll be shutting that particular phone number down. But the problem here is that a lot of times that they are able to get you to deposit the check, take out the money immediately, and wire it to a location.
And I want to talk about that next. But before we do, I want to remind our listeners, you're listening to 1160 WOBM AM here in Ocean County and 1310 AM in Monmouth County and all over the world on www.wobmam.com. Cindy, I know that there are telltale signs that you hear about that our friends and neighbors listening to today's show may hear about, but just to make the listening audience more aware in general, what are some of the telltale signs that perhaps a friend or a neighbor can be on the lookout for if they see one of their colleagues, neighbors, somebody living in a community might be the victim of one of these scams or frauds?
Well,
what should people be looking for?
Well, in particular, if it's a senior living at home alone, and they notice that they don't see them too much. They were active, they're out and about. You notice newspapers piling up. They're not going out. It doesn't appear as though, they're unkept. There's no food in the house. and that you see a lot of mail on the table. And I've gone into numerous residents, and the first thing that, I can see is that there's various letters from lotteries, and then I see bills that have gone unpaid. They're very hesitant to talk about their finances. And that's when I usually, I'm alerted usually through Adult Protective Services, which is one of my counterparts that I highly recommend to any person or family if you have a suspicion that your loved one is being abused or financially abused, physically abused, exploited. They will go in and do a thorough investigation and find out what does this person need or what can we do to them. But their main thing is that they want to keep you in your home.
Correct. So it's not like a person's going to lose their autonomy. Rather, because we've worked with Adult Protective Services proactively, and their goal is to afford an individual the ability to live at home, but to be safe, to make sure they're properly being fed, that they're in a safe home environment, their medical needs, personal needs, their hygiene, and so forth are being attended to. And if the person needs help, they can recommend help. Sometimes our offices utilize them. As you know, we work with other colleagues, such as folks who are members of a group I'm active in called the Senior Resource Alliance, where we're able to recommend geriatric care, home health aid care. If they need to relocate to an appropriate, safer environment, such as a assisted living or some kind of a continuing care community, we're able to do that. If they need financial assistance, we can recommend the appropriate financial advisor or trustee of a trust company or whatever. And we also, as you know, work with the caregiver volunteers of Central Jersey, Lynette Whiteman's folks, who will provide respite care and visits and allow people, like you say, the ability to enjoy a quality of life.
Well, Ocean County is like no other. We're 10, I would say, and I think I'm being very kind with this, we're 10 years ahead of everybody because we dealt with this back in the late 90s, and a lot of stuff came to the forefront. It was addressed immediately, and hence came the Senior Crime Unit, which is now part of the Financial Crimes Unit, and also the Senior Scam Task Force, which is primarily getting people educated. And through many years of hard work, myself and joint effort with everybody in the county, I just, like I said, there's no other county like it. And I've been
You're fortunate that way.
Oh, very. And I've been contacted by other counties to get the model. How did we do this?
Exactly.
And I share everything, no matter what it is. My goal is to, when I finally do retire, if and when, is
if
to
they let you,
is if things are in place that people will know what is available to them and that they're always protected.
And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we do, Lauren, I understand we have a caller patiently holding on line one. Angela, thank you for holding and calling Inside the Law. How could Cindy Boyd from the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office and I, Bob Novy, help you?
Good morning. I have a question. My question is, what are the steps one should take if you fall victim to a scam or if you suspect a loved one has fallen victim?
Very good question. Angela's asking if you yourself have fallen victim to a scam or you know of a loved one or a friend or neighbor who may be the victim. What's the first step, Cindy?
Well,
what should Angela
A lot of it would
do?
depend on the type of scam and how it was perpetrated.
Can you be more specific? Is it a financial one or a physical abuse or threats or
Financial.
Financial?
And who is the subject of this, without giving out too much?
A grandmother.
Grandmother.
Okay. And is it a caretaker, a family member, or an acquaintance?
I believe it's an acquaintance.
Okay. Are they currently living in the house with her?
No, but they're trying to get their way in.
Okay. And let me ask you, first question I always ask is your loved one competent? Do you believe them to be competent, or are there issues here that would, maybe compromise their, judgment?
Most of the time, I believe that she is competent, but some of the times I feel that she's being taken advantage of.
And is that by virtue of her age or health?
I think it's both.
Okay. Who currently has control over any of her finances or her, I guess, health issues?
Well, herself and the children step in every once in a while, when they feel that they need to.
Well, does anybody have power of attorney?
Yes.
And is that someone currently involved in the situation?
Well, yes, they are acting as power of attorney, but there's also people from the outside trying to give their advice and say, no, you shouldn't listen to what your kids are saying.
Okay.
You should really do as I say. I've been there, and that sort of thing.
So it sounds like they're trying to gain your grandmother's confidence and push the kids out of the picture so they can take over control.
Right.
Okay.
And in those situations, I've dealt with many of those that start out like this. And if you don't nip it in the bud now, if that person or persons get too far in the front door, you may have, and if your grandmother's deemed competent, you're going to have a hard time probably getting rid of them and or proving that they've, have access to money. And I've had situations where the person voluntarily gave money, although the family members, see it differently. Who's to say? If she's deemed competent, it's her money, this is what she wants to do with it. So, and then in the long run, she ended up getting scammed out of the money, but is it, we have to question, was it done legally or,
involuntarily?
Or involuntarily.
Yeah.
But the thing here is that if they're competent, I always say get a baseline, have her examined just to make sure she's okay, a usual checkup. So that you have a baseline to know if she has declining health and mental capacities, whether she's got going into Alzheimer's or even the beginning stages of dementia.
Right.
If you don't have a baseline, and God forbid something happens where they end up getting talker, you can have numerous people can have power of attorney.
Correct. There could be more than one.
Yes.
And Angela, what I would, if I may,
Yeah.
what I'd recommend is that, and I agree with what Cindy said, Sergeant Boyd said about trying to have Grandma examined by a doctor. It wouldn't hurt to have a neurologist or a specialist do what's called a mini mental on her, just to get a sense of the level of her competence, to review with the doctor what medication she's on, to see if she's on the proper medications, to make sure that she's not going through some kind of a depression or loneliness, which could make her vulnerable, even if she is competent. You'd want to have the family memorialize and get a kind of a checklist of what Grandma's assets are. At Novy & Associates, we can mail you, or anyone listening, a simple checklist which is called What I Own and Where It's Located. And if you or anyone would like to receive a copy, you can call our office at 732-657-0600, and we'll be glad to send that checklist to you. We always recommend get an idea of where Grandma keeps her bank statements, her tax returns. Whoever in the family has her power of attorney should make sure that a copy of it is on file with her banks, wherever she has accounts. And I would personally visit the bank with your grandmother if she'll go along to any banks where she has accounts, and any financial advisor, if she has a brokerage account or what have you, to let them know that there's a set of eyes looking after Grandma. And if one of these so-called friends shows up on a spur of the moment with your grandmother and tries to get your grandmother to take the family off power of attorney in these accounts and put them on, if nothing else, hopefully the bank will at least make a call to one of you to let you know what's going on. And if this person knows that there's several people watching out for Grandma, hopefully that you'll prevent any damage or fraud or diversion of funds from taking place, because it does sound suspicious to me.
Right.
And along those lines, Cindy and I were talking about this before we went on the air in terms of what other common sense things should people do or not do. And Cindy mentioned about credit cards. What's the issue with credit cards, Cindy?
As far as them,
the information on them, and
well, what happens is that like with your grandmother, I'm sure she has a checking account. She may or may not have credit cards. If you have someone who's going into the home, whether it be a caretaker or an acquaintance, one thing I've dealt with throughout the years is that they get their hands on the credit cards. Number one, and they utilize that information. They either take the card, use it, put it back, and they intercept the actual bills sometimes too. And after the charges are ran up to unbelievable. It's a little late, but we work with the credit card companies and we try to rectify it. And of course, we try to go after the person who may have done it. And there's a paper trail, so sometimes it's not too hard. But also a big concern is the checking account, the checkbook. I've had numerous situations where a person who has had access to the home and was trusted by the victim go in and they'll take several checks out in either the middle or the end of the checkbook, so that by the time it's actually noticed, it's a little late as far as the money. That money's taken out. Again, a criminal case can be pursued, but those are rather long, and trying to actually find out who took the check and there's a lot of footwork to be done, but we try to avoid that. That's why I always say, when you have even a caretaker or an acquaintance, somebody who's coming in doing your family a favor by looking after your loved one, always make sure anything with pertinent information is secured, whether it's kept there at the home or it's locked away. That includes anything with cash or jewelry. Things kind of have grow legs and walks, what we say in my line of work.
Right.
So, for example, obviously don't let, hopefully your grandmother is not letting one of these people use or borrow her credit card, because once they do, they have all the information, the security number, and all the codes. Yep. Obviously, she shouldn't give out cash to strangers. She shouldn't, nobody, for that matter, should get a phone call and from some financial company and say, "Oh, I'm Harry from XYZ Financial Advisor. I want to sell you the latest stock. Get in on the ground floor." You don't do business with a stranger like that and make purchases without a face-to-face meeting and without seeing a prospectus and checking them out to make sure it's a registered representative and that they have licenses with the NASDAQ or the SEC or what have you to make sure that they're legitimate. And as Cindy mentioned, when we as elder lawyers at Novy & Associates have cause to recommend a home health agency, we only deal with legitimate, certified home health agencies who do background checks, who hire people after they've screened them to make sure they have the proper licenses from the state, the Department of Nursing, to make sure that there's workers' compensation insurance. We don't allow, if we can, we try to prevent our clients from hiring people through what they call the Russian or the Polish underground, because these people come and go, and if there's a theft or there's a loss or an injury, who's responsible and who's going to be protecting the client? And that's why we look to deal with legitimate people. And we do have a background and a knowledge and a resource of other folks who can help people if they need that kind of assistance. And lastly, in that regard, before a home health agency is brought in to take care of someone at home, we will recommend that the family have an inventory done of what the personal property is in the house, so that the agency knows we have a record of what's in the house before their staff come in. And if something's missing later on, we're going to be pointing the finger and looking at them.
And Angela, right, if you want a little bit more guidance and you don't want to talk on the air, feel free to give me a call in the office, and I could give you some more steps to follow. But you got to remember, if your grandmother is being befriended by this person, she's going to trust them. And you got to remember, there are certain things that if she's competent and she voluntarily gave them money or a credit card or something, that is going to be hard to prosecute. I mean, we look at everything, but feel free to give me a call. And
Cindy, if Angela or anyone else listening to today's show would like to do that, how would they get a hold of you at the prosecutor's office?
I'll give you the phone number: 732-929-2027, and my extension is 3025, or ask for Sergeant Boyd.
Sergeant Boyd, B-O-Y-D.
And I have a lot of people that are dealing with financial crimes. We have a tremendous unit, absolutely tremendous. Some of the best detective bean counters, I call them, that we have probably anywhere. And they're very geared towards, obviously, the senior population in Ocean County. They're just about a third of our population.
They are.
And a high concentration here. And it's not a secret. Even the criminals abroad, Jamaica, Canada,
Nigeria.
They know, and they got a little taste of how we protect our seniors this morning.
So, Angela, I want to thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. If you're a mom, we want to wish you a happy Mother's Day, and I hope that this information has been helpful, and God willing, we're able to help keep Grandma home safely and prevent any scams or frauds from taking place. But thank you for sharing your story with us, and if you or anyone else would like to get follow-up information, please feel free to call Sergeant Boyd, at 732-929-2027. And Cindy, what's your extension again?
3025.
3025. Thank you, Angela, and
Great.
have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much, Sergeant and Mr. Novy. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Inside the Law, brought to you by the law offices of Novy and Associates, your elder lawyer, elder care law firm in Ocean and Monmouth County. Our phone number at the studio is 732-505-1160. And Lauren, I understand we have a caller patiently holding on line too. Kathy, thank you for calling Inside the Law. How can we help you?
Hi. I have two twin grandchildren, 8 years old, and I have my internet set up in our bedroom, and they're looking at it, and they're exploring. So when I have them, is there something I can put on my computer so they don't go look at sites that are inappropriate?
That's a very interesting question. Is that an issue today with cyberspace and computers as to stuff that's out there and things that we can, frankly, protect our younger generations as well? Because I know there is a computer crimes unit in the prosecutor's office.
Yeah, this is an issue because a lot of times this is how adults are looking for kids surfing the net. And, if they punch in keywords, certain sites are going to be popping up that may catch their interest, but it's actually geared to luring them into something.
Okay.
And you really got to be careful. And I understand there are certain protections you can put on the computer, but I'm not extremely versed in that, and this is more geared to, we have a highly specialized unit in the prosecutor's office, the high-tech crime unit.
Okay.
And what I would suggest, to get a better grasp, if you want to give me a call in the office, I'll get, in particular, geared towards your situation, what you can do to keep your kids safe while they're at your house on their computer. But
right.
I suggest that you monitor, what you're doing, because I've come to find that, especially pedophiles, they surf the net, and they have certain filters set up to bring kids to a certain, website. And then, I've come to find that, and this happened to somebody that I know who's of a young age, was talking to somebody on the computer, and they thought they were talking to somebody else, and it ended up being an older person and trying to gain their confidence. And, they figured they were just talking about games and stuff of that nature, and this is what they do. So even when you may even be comfortable thinking that, they're just talking to someone, you got to be so careful because, they're anonymous criminals. You don't know who they really are on the other side of that computer.
Right.
Also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Cindy, the high-tech crimes unit, I know, does go out, as you do,
yeah, and
has spoken before parents, PTA groups, and in the school systems to the children themselves. Absolutely, and it's vital information in this day and age of cyberspace and the crimes that are occurring, not just against children, but just anybody in the population can be targeted as a victim. But if you want something like that, for them to come to your school and talk to the kids and the parents and the teachers, just contact my office there or go on our website, and you can basically, and it's just punch in Ocean County Prosecutor's Office, and a tremendous website will come up, and you can actually request a speaker.
Okay, great.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about that, Kathy, but thank you for sharing that with us. And again, if Cindy Boyd can be of help, she'll be glad to point you or any other listener in the right direction to get the kind of advice and be proactive as you're attempting to protect your own grandchildren. And her number is 732-929-2027, and Cindy's extension is 3025.
And your office, Mr. Novy?
Our office is 732-657-0600. And as elder lawyers, we get involved in issues involving, obviously, seniors, but people of all ages dealing with financial issues, estate planning, medical decision-making, financial powers of attorney, medical powers of attorney, and even in terms of protecting loved ones of all ages and setting up protective arrangements. As I was mentioning to Cindy before we came on the radio this morning, we have a client who we're doing an estate plan for, and she wants to protect her son who has a substance abuse problem. So we're going to be putting together an estate plan with a trust that will help provide her son with the shelter he'll need, but to make sure that the funds that she leaves behind after she's no longer on this earth will be used to help him with shelter, but to make sure that no money goes to support a drug abuse or any kind of a dependence issue, because drug abuse is a real problem here in this country. And as Cindy and I know, and many people know in Ocean County, our prosecutor, Joe Coronado, is doing a marvelous job fighting the drug abuse issue, but it takes not one person, it takes a village to combat the drug dilemma that we have in this county and in this country. It's growing in leaps and bounds. Okay. And kids are not immune to it either. It's very scary. Our own son was a teacher for a few years in his high school system, and he came across kids in their teens with heroin, with cocaine, and other substances, and it's scary. And the problem is only growing. So it takes a village. It takes many people to know what's out there and to do what we can to help, hopefully, avoid the addiction from continuing and to prevent it from happening in the first place. But thank you for sharing your morning with us, and I hope you enjoy the weekend. If your mother, happy Mother's Day, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And just speaking to Prosecutor Coronado's initiative that's taken on a life of its own, and he's been relentless dealing with this. But I just want to throw out there, too, that, we do have programs where you can turn in your medications, whether it's usually to the local police departments, and then ultimately they come to the prosecutor's office where we have them destroyed. But in dealing with the senior population, this is available to anybody. If you are a senior and you have medication that is old or you don't use it anymore, don't leave it laying around. Go to your local police department. They'll take it in, and they will get rid of it for you. And
dump it. Obviously, don't dump it down a toilet because it might wind up in our water system.
Yeah. The first thing I would suggest, and it's a tremendous initiative, and I can speak to that because I see the volumes that are coming into our office, and it makes us very happy that this stuff is not out on the streets. It doesn't lend to having, particularly being a grandparent, if you have, whether they're young children, teenage, grandchildren, or sons or daughters that, may be seeking out particular drugs, and you have a medicine cabinet and, not even thinking twice about it, that, they could be taking that medication. So instead of putting yourself in a position where, that may help facilitate a bad situation, you can certainly call my office. We can direct you, where you can drop it off, and just, give you a peace of mind and, and your family members.
And I guess that also takes a sensitivity by doctors as well, because as you and I know, Cindy, some of our adult population are not great historians in terms of what their maladies or illnesses are and what medications they're on, how often they take them. And as you know and I know, you put the wrong combination of medications together, it can, make the person confused. It can start a downward spiral of dementia. And then, of course, if you combine that with alcohol, it can make matters worse. And on top of all of that, if a person starts imbibing and drinking alcoholic beverages, we have a recipe for disaster, personal injury and otherwise. So I'm always concerned when a senior, or anybody for that matter, goes to multiple doctors and gets multiple medications. If the doctors don't follow up with each other or check with the pharmacy, assuming the patient is using one pharmacy to fill all the meds, if there's no follow-up, we may have that problem which the doctors call polypharmacy, or multiple contraindicated medications being consumed.
Well, with the different registries around now, the pharmacist has access to a lot of information to help prevent some of that.
Okay.
But, can you prevent all of it? Absolutely not. And that's what the shame of it is. But my real concern is that, mixing the medication with alcohol and not realizing that, you can create a situation that you can ultimately lead to a very bad ending. So
we were talking earlier with Angela, who called about a grandmother, and you reminded me of something that I think is worth bringing up, to our listeners here on Outside the Law. And that is, if someone has had their identity and their credit compromised, what should anyone, for that matter, do if they're questioning what their credit score is, or they're wondering if maybe someone has used their credit card illegally without their knowledge and permission? What can they do to see what's happening to their credit?
Well, it's funny. I do get a lot of phone calls regarding what I call plain old, simple credit card fraud. And first thing when they called, they said, I'm a victim of identity theft. And once we look at it, we sort out the facts a little bit more. There still is just plain credit card fraud where they don't have any of their pertinent information, but they have gotten a hold of their credit card or the information pertaining to that card. So with that being said, it's still a crime. But that can be handled through canceling the credit card. And, a majority of the companies now have a clause in their contract saying that, if you are a victim, you're not held liable, we'll refund or take care of whatever and issue a new card. But for those of you who have given out pertinent information like your Social Security, your date of birth, anything that has to do with your finances, that's the recipe for disaster. And thank God, here in Ocean County, based on the education and awareness that in particular our seniors have received over the years, that has kind of quelled quite a bit of that. But again, I've had, and this is as recent as last week, a call that a senior had gotten a phone call, got caught up in a scam, but as soon as they gave out their bank account and their Social Security number, they realized what they had done. They stopped, they called me, and fortunately, I was in the office at that particular time. I said, hang up, call your bank, and then put a fraud alert on your credit report. And that will hopefully stop them from being able to get anything from a car to a mortgage or additional credit cards in your name. And therefore, then you are a victim of identity theft. But you can stop that almost immediately. But you have to remember the most important thing is that if you receive an unsolicited phone call, somebody calls you, you didn't call them, and they're asking for pertinent information or they're trying to sell you something, do not give out your information. I don't care if they tell you that they're the Pope visiting the United States. Do not give out your information. And even if they give you a number to check to confirm that they are who they say they are, you can't even go by that because they provide you with a phone number where somebody's going to just, go along with the whole scheme. So you need to go by what you know, and that's your pertinent records, any information that you can get that you know to be real.
And I know we have a caller patiently holding on line one, and we'll be right with you. But that also reminds me about the help that's available. And, of course, one resource is Sergeant Boyd herself at the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office, and her phone number is 732-929-2027, extension 3025. Another resource, as you mentioned earlier, Cindy, is Ocean County's Office of Adult Protective Services, and their phone number is 732-349-1500. And I know another county agency that will research and provide resources on consumer theft and fraud and people getting money for doing work in the home but misperform or don't show up or overcharge, whatever. That's the Ocean County Office of Consumer Affairs, and their number is 732-929-2105.
And we work hand in hand with them. They're the civil aspect. We're the criminal.
Correct.
And, dealing with a lot of these cases with Sandy contractor fraud has been absolutely amazing. We have a lot of cases, and we anticipate more coming in. But we are, looking at each and every one of them, and we're working with the various agencies from the state onward up to the federal level. Okay. But they are a constant in the community, and we work with them every day.
Exactly. Lauren, I understand we have a caller on line one. Gene, thank you for holding and calling us on Inside the Law. How can we help you?
Good morning. I have just an experience I want to share with Sergeant Boyd and yourself.
Okay.
I was a novice, and I put a particular item on Craigslist, and I got I gave my email address, and this person contacted me saying they want this item. Please take it off Craigslist and get back to me as soon as possible. So I got back to that person through an email, and they said they wanted to buy it sight unseen. She was relocating to the Jersey Shore from California, but she was going to send me a cashier's check, and she would just she told me cash it right away, and also there would be a fee for someone to pick that up. A mover would pick it up, and I was supposed to give the person the fee. So I didn't know too much about it, and they kept on insisting that they were going to send me the check. I said I don't want it. I sold it. I don't want to sell it. I sold it already, and kept on insisting that they were going to send me this check to cover the cost of the item plus moving expenses, so they finally sent me this envelope. I didn't open it up. I brought it to the Postmaster General in Toms River.
Okay.
And they said it was a scam, and they would take care of it. And I also went on online to report this incident to the Postmaster General out of D.C.
Good for you. You were very proactive, and I commend you for taking the time to do that.
People think it's Craigslist or I guess I don't know about Amazon, but anyhow, but you have to be aware that there's people watching these websites.
Yeah,
and,
that reminds me also,
people.
Gene, Sergeant Boyd, I'm sorry. You mentioned before the show about how you cooperate with or have gotten a cooperation of Western Union. You may want to mention that to Gene and our listeners.
Yeah, back in 2012, when at the height of what we call the granny scam, they were having grandparents go to Western Unions to wire money out to get their grandson or granddaughter out of jail, which was obviously a total hoax. But I had several victims, and I was getting frustrated because the money was going out of the country. And once that money's out of the country, we really don't know where it lands. We have no idea of the country or don't know who's picking up. And it is hard to get cooperation with other countries and dealing out, just on the county level. Number one, it's out of our jurisdiction. So I took a different approach. When I contacted the corporate office of Western Union, they decided to join in on the initiative. And to date, because of this initiative, and it's ongoing, and we're going to hopefully be doing a major conference in the upcoming year to even get more information out to our seniors and their families. What they have done is that they have notified, we have 127 wire transfer stations here in Ocean County, and each one of them received a letter describing the type of frauds and advising them that, to actually speak to the customer to ascertain if it's possibly a fraud, dealing with, at that time, primarily money going to Canada, and then, of course, a Jamaican scam, money going down to Jamaica for the lottery scams. And glad to say, just because of that initial rollout, that it stopped more scams in the time frame since then, that I virtually have had hardly any victims because of these wire transfer stations and their agents. They were alerted, they were educated, and they actually stopped tremendous amount of money from leaving this country.
That's wonderful, yeah.
So, Gene, I want to thank you for calling. I appreciate your insights. And bottom line, again, we need people like you who are proactive and who keep your eyes and ears open and obviously use everyday common sense. And I thank you for sharing your story with us. And if you learn of any other scams like that, please call, as I think Sergeant Boyd would suggest, call your local police department. Of course, you contacted the postmaster's office, which is great. And
I also informed the Berkeley Police Department also.
Berkeley Police Department in this case. And, of course, consider notifying the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office because collectively, if enough people are alert and aware and take preventative steps, hopefully we can avoid any or at least reduce the number of scams and keep people financially, physically, medically, and otherwise socially safer in their homes, and that's what it's all about. You know, seniors are very trusting. They are truly the greatest generation, as Tom Brokaw said, and they've earned the right. And perhaps it sounds like you may have already as well. And we're in your debt for the years of service that you've given our country, both as I'm sure, a tax-paying citizen, and hopefully someone who's come down here to enjoy the quality of life and be able to retire and live out your life with dignity. And that's what this nation is all about. And any way we can help you and our other listeners, that's why Cindy is so passionate, and I, as an elder lawyer, are so passionate in what we do. And
Gene,
yes, Cindy.
Gene, I just want to say that you are the perfect example and probably a result of what we do here in the county. And it's so nice and refreshing to get, and majority of my phone calls I get is to alert me about these facts. I have watchdogs out there like yourself, and I welcome these calls because it tells me that what we've done over the years has worked. And the less victims, the better. Even one victim is too much.
That's true, yes.
But thank you so much for,
Thank you, Sergeant,
sharing.
for the job you're doing in your office.
Oh, you know what? I love it. I have fun. And
she really does.
And I'll probably, even after I retire, I'll still be involved.
Thank you, Gene. Have a great weekend, and God bless you, and be well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Cindy, we're almost down to the last 2 minutes or so, but if we can, real quickly, do you want to mention about this Silver Alert program?
Yeah, in recent times, I've gotten some calls from seniors on the Parkway. And, we've worked it where back in 2007, I worked with Virginia State Police, who had a tremendous program. And we did start to do a pilot program here. And then myself and Lynette Whiteman, who's a dear friend and what I consider an expert in Alzheimer's disease.
Yes, she is.
We put together a pilot program. And fortunately, with her help, we got information to the state legislators to tell them we need this. We need this here in Ocean County because back then we had lost someone who got in the car who had, I guess basically Alzheimer's and got lost, and we couldn't find her for many days, and it did not end up well. And that Silver Alert is to just what it says, it was going to be called the Golden Alert, but, Silver Alert would kind of, fit better. But it's to alert people who are looking for a loved one, and there's certain criteria. If they do meet this criteria, then the state police will put it on the Parkway signs with Silver Alert, the car description, and the plate number. But basically, what it is, it's issued for when a person is missing, who is missing, regardless of their age, if they have a disability of some sort, or suffers from dementia or cognitive impairment. And there is certain criteria because a lot of people say, well, I lost grandma. She went to the store. But I'm just going to go over that real quick so that the audience has a better understanding of how it's utilized. The person believed to be missing is believed to be suffering from dementia or other cognitive impairment, regardless of their age. Because you could have, dementia, early on in life, unfortunately. Or a missing persons report has been submitted to a local law enforcement agency where the person went missing. But the key here is that if that person is missing and believed in be in danger due to serious health issues or death, then there are certain exceptions that they will do to get this information out there. But again, contact your local police, give them all the information, and they will guide you as to the steps and help you by far find your loved one. But the Silver Alert is out there for certain situations, and it has been very, very useful.
Cindy, again, unfortunately, we're out of time, but as always, I want to thank you and the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office for making you available, and you do make a difference to our adult population here in Ocean County, and you're a tremendous resource. I appreciate you taking time out of a busy weekend to come on, and look forward to having you on again and working with you in this conference. God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, have a happy Mother's Day. And we'll be back with another edition Inside the Law 2 weeks from now. Lauren, have a great weekend, too. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bob.
Thank you.